How's it going, YouTube? Today, I was going to show you how to do how to lift and support this car, the BMW Z4 E85 platform. This should apply to all the E85s, even with the N52 motor. I'm going to show you how to lift it up and put it on 4 jack stands. It's a delicate process. It pretty much is the same exact way as supporting like an E46 3 Series BMW, but the only difference is that the BMW Z4 is a lot shorter, like a lot closer to the ground than the E46. So there's a little bit of added things you need to purchase with it being this low to the ground. So yeah, I'm going to show you I'm going to show you where all the jacking points are located, how to, in the process of getting it up onto jack stands. I'll even show you how to even get it up on even taller jack stands. All right, well, so the first thing you're going to need to buy for getting this car up into the air is a low profile jack that can support the weight of half the car. This is a 3-ton low profile Daytona jack that I bought from Harbor Freight. It's a well-regarded low profile jack. Pretty much anybody on YouTube doing a DIY video that doesn't have a car lift in their garage, they use this jack. It's pretty good quality. I've owned this one in specific for about 5 years now, 5 or 6 years. The thing's worked great. It's starting to develop a little bit of a squeaking sound when I go to lift the car up. But it's fine. But this thing is the perfect height to get underneath of the BMW Z4. I even have an attachment there that's more meant for cars that have pinch welds. This car does not have pinch welds. They've got a much easier setup for how you would jack the car up. But yeah, this is going to be the jack you need to purchase. And if you can even swing the cost, I recommend buying 2 of them. Because for this car, you are going to maybe need 2 jacks to get this up. I do have another jack that I used to use in the past, but unfortunately, this is just a Craftsman normal roll-around floor jack. These things are unfortunately a little too high off the ground to get underneath the car. In the corners. It's probably doable with a 3 Series. You know, I probably could get a 3 Series up in the air, no problem. But the Z4, this type of jack is too high. As you can see, the profile is just way taller off the ground, while the Daytona is, you know, much shorter down to the ground. But I recommend maybe getting 2, because this car is a little funky with how you have to go about getting to the center jack points in the front and the rear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and lift the front onto 2 jack stands, and then I'm going to go to the rear. There's a little bit involved with getting the rear up in the air that I'll show you. But yeah, let's start the process of lifting at least the front half of the car. Okay, so I'm underneath I'm right near the passenger front wheel, right over here. First, you're going to need to start jacking up this car from the corners. You know, the E46, you could probably fit that low-profile Daytona jack underneath the front of the car and just go right for the central jack point to get it up in the air. Unfortunately, this car, it's too low to fit the jack under the front of the car. So what you need to do is you need to lift up this corner here. So like I mentioned, I have those 2 jacks. So you are going to need 2 jacks to get this car up in the air. And I highly recommend you just get 2 of those low profile jacks. But I decided I can still make do with the other one that I have, the black one that I showed you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up. So this is the jack pad here. You can see this rectangle. Every single corner of the E85 platform, and the same with the E46 platform, have these are their jacking points on the corners of the cars. So these are nice, you know, plastic jacking points that are very solid. You can even, I think it's just 1 bolt that holds them in, and you can replace them if they ever look like they're
If they look like they're missing or if they're really torn apart, you can just get some new ones and replace them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my green jack and I'm going to lift up from here. And what that does is it lifts the car up, you know, just a little bit more. And even when so I'll lift it up and then I'll bring the car down. And what that still will do is the car will actually be higher off the ground in the front. If you give this car a lift in the front and you bring it down, it actually will sit higher off the ground than what it did before. So what I need to do is I need to get that green jack, lift this thing up a little more. It'll lift up a little more, and then I'll bring it down. It'll be up a little higher. And then I'll get my black jack, and then I'll wheel it over here. That'll actually then fit at that point. And then I'll be able to jack up with the black jack here, up just enough on the corner to get my green jack in the center of the car to lift up, to get to the center jack point in the front. So then it'll just transfer over to the green jack and you'll lift the whole front end of the car while lifting it. So yeah, let's do that. Let's get my green jack, lift this up, bring it down, then get the black jack. That'll have enough room to fit in here. And then we're going to lift up with that and then lift from the central jacking point.
Okay, I got my green jack positioned under there. It's on the it's on that corner pad that I was showing you. You twist this guy clockwise until it's closed, until it's solid. That'll keep the valve closed from letting the release of the pressure. So now you can start jacking it up. So you're going to be jacking it up this direction. What I'm going to show you is that, you know, that explanation I was showing you of how this car will be lifted a little higher. I'm going to get my tape measure. I'm going to show you the difference in height that it'll be at. From when we use that green jack. So before we use that green jack, I'm going to get an estimated height of where we're at. We're about at 26 and a quarter here. So I'm going to show you that when I lift this car up and then bring it back down, it's going to be a little higher. So now that it's 26 and a quarter, we're going to lift it up. You also put your e-brake on inside the car. It's also best, I'll show you after I do this, but it's going to be best to put a block of wood on the back to chock the rear wheels. So you can see how the car in the front here is going up. And once the wheels off the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the pressure by turning this counterclockwise. I'm going to lower it down. And I'm going to show you that the height is now changed on this front section here. So we had 26 and a quarter. Let's see what we got now. So now we are at 27 inches off the ground. So that lifted it up almost an inch, a full inch. And it's right now the jack's not even pressing up on it. So like I said, giving it a lift and bringing it back down, it'll come back down and actually sit higher. And you'll actually notice this when you go to lower the car. You know, once you get the car completely off the ground and you go to lower it, it's going to look like it's sitting higher once it's back on the ground. And it won't shake itself out to being back to nominal height until you get the car out of the parking space and move it around and drive it. So with that lift, we should now have enough room to snake my black jack in here and lift it up further so that we can now position my green jack that's going to be going down the middle here. See, the problem is I need to have that black jack to lift it up a little more because you can see how the green jack hits the bumper here. Yeah, right here. It's just not enough to fit this thing underneath. So let's get the blackjack and continue to lift up the car. So like I mentioned, got the blackjack under here, got it fully compressed. You can see now that the cup for this blackjack is now just underneath this black pad here. What I'm gonna do is there's no room to put any sort of rubber insulation in between, but it's fine. You can just use the metal cup of this jack. But I needed that little bit of a lift to get the car to be up a little higher.
this is I have the sport suspension set up on this car that I installed, so the car is a little lower than if I were using the normal standard suspension. So you actually wouldn't have to do this part if your car is at the normal suspension height. But if you have the sport suspension and you have this kind of dual jack combo, like I mentioned, if you had just bought 2 of those green Daytona jacks, all I would have done was just jacked up in that corner, up high enough so that wheel was kind of off the ground, and then I would have just slid my second jack under the center of the car and hooked right up to the central jack point and didn't have to even bother doing this. But since this jack's a little taller, it needs a little bit more height to get underneath. So with this jack, there's a valve right here you close with the handle, and then get under here, and then you start to lift it up. Just make sure you don't really have to lift it up too high. We just need to get this up off the ground, because as you saw, that green jack was pretty close to getting under there, so I don't even have to lift the front wheel off. But let's see if that, even just that was enough. So there we go. So we're gonna slide the green jack forward. You gotta really lay down to get underneath this car. And what you'll see is the door. That's the door for the oil change. And you can see that rectangle, that metal rectangle that's between the black plastic here and the black door for the oil change. That is your central jack point. That's the central jack point for the E46 platform, as well as this car. So what I got to do is I got to get my jack underneath that point there, and I'm going to jack up the car. You just need a lot of space in the front, from the front of the car and the back of the car, to really squeeze this under, because you don't really have a whole lot of length or much to really push this handle down. So you can see it's interfering with my legs because I'm laying down to see what's under there. I'm gonna have to move my legs out from underneath to start jacking up on that spot in the middle. So you want to get this thing almost as perfectly in the middle as you can, where that rectangle is. And then you want to make sure you don't really push. I have like a little rubber insulator I bought that's like covers the metal part around the jack, and it's just all rubber. I bought that just so that it wasn't metal on metal contact. But one thing you want to try to avoid is trying to break any sort of plastic with those jacks, with these with the jack itself, because it's pretty tight. It's a pretty large surface that I've got that I'm lifting up from. But as you can see, I'm starting to lift now. And what I was saying earlier, we should chalk the rear wheels off. So let's get a piece of wood. I just grab some regular piece of lumber and just chalk it, kick it underneath that rear wheel so the car doesn't want to roll backwards. The e-brake were to fail. But here we go. Now we got, this much throw right here. So we don't have a lot, but it's going to get more and more as we get this car higher and higher off the ground. So like I said, this thing likes to squeak a lot on me. Probably just needs some sort of lubrication. As you can see, the wheels are already off the ground. But we can get this thing up pretty high with this jack. And what I'm going to do, so I'm going to show you the jacks that I got. This car's pretty high off the ground. Wheels are starting to come off there. So what I got are 2-ton jacks. And then I got this black one here. This one's a 2 1/4, I think. 2 1/4. These are 2-ton. I got the other black one down there. These are what I'm going to put the car on first. I'm pretty much not going to give myself any extra lift. I'm just going to put them on the car like this, fully pressed down. This is the safest position this jack has. So with doing the front, now I'm gonna keep the handle facing out, Gonna look for those corner jack pads that I showed you. Figure out if, you know, you're high enough or not. And if not, we got to go and lift the car up even higher. I even have this 6-ton jack. I have 4 of these, and these things are by far much taller than the 2 tons. But I've needed this thing to do quite a bit of extra extensive work on this car. It's way nicer having these things to get this car really high off the ground. I'm pretty sure with this, like, extended, I could probably do the clutch on this car. I've got 4 of these, and they are, I could pretty much probably pull the transmission out with getting this thing all the way up in the air with these. And these are considered truck jacks. They have SUV jacks, and I think those are like 4 tons. And, you know, 2 ton are for the shorter cars, 6 tons for the trucks. But what you can do is once you get all 4 jacks underneath the car and they're in an even position, what you can do is you can start going back and forth from the rear jack point in the center to the front jack point in the center. And what you can do is you can just slowly go each end, go back and forth, lift up. You know, what I would do is once I get all 4 jacks, you know, down on the basic side, then I'll go to one side and lift up severely, you know, maybe up this high. Same with this on like the forward end, then I'd go back to the rear, and then I would lift up from the central jack point there, and then lift. Well, what you don't have to do is, so you don't have to lift those, but what you could do is then swap out that and put in the big 6-ton jack in the rear, and then go to the front, get these guys out of there, and then put another set of 2 6-ton jacks in the front. And to get this car higher and higher and higher, all you would have to do is just go back and forth, front to rear, just slowly, you know, lift a couple levels up on that, and then go to the rear, lift that up a couple times, or even higher than that, and then kind of work your way back and forth to slowly just work the car up as high as you need it to go. So for now, I'm just getting this car. I'm going to be doing an oil change on this car, so I really don't need to be lifting the rear, but I'm going to do it just to have it for the video to show you how to get it onto 4 jack stands. But as you can see, the car is pretty high up now. It needs a little bit more to go up. But you can see how high this thing gets. You can lift it up as high as you want. I've seen some interesting videos of people getting one half of the car up pretty high. And yeah, perfect. I actually might even lift one level on this. But that one fits now underneath. As you can see, this jack that we started off with no longer is making contact. So what I'll do is I'll lower this and then pull it out and get my other blue jack here under here. I'm also not dealing with a level surface really in here, and I've noticed that the driver's side sits a little lower than the passenger side. So when it comes to lowering this, the car is going to want to do a full clockwise rotation coming down. So that side's gonna, the little pads, right now they're like on the back end of the pad, but they're gonna move, the pads are gonna move back as I lower this. But we're just gonna watch to see before that one makes contact like that. Make sure that we have this in the right spot. This can just literally sit on there with no rubber attachments at all. Just make sure, you know, you see how I'm sitting it on the back of this pad, because when I lower it more, the pad's gonna move this direction. Same with the other side. So I think that one I'm pretty close to making contact with. That one's gonna still be in the air as that's making contact. So let's make contact with that. And let's just watch the other side. All right, it's getting pretty close. Okay, this one needs to come back a little bit. Is it wide enough? Fit in the width? There we go.
Now I think we're good to go with lowering this all the way down. There we go. Just like that. The front of the car is now up on 2 jack stands. Like I said, you want to get onto that rectangle piece right there. You'll notice that it's pretty crunched in on mine because I've used it quite a lot. So either you'll see it's crunched in and used quite a bit, or it actually is bumped out. And that means no one's ever used it. This car has only seen lifts, 2-point lifts, 2-post lifts to lift this thing up from the corners. Because that central jack point really is for just hand jacks like this. But yeah, so we've now successfully got the car on the front off the ground. Both wheels are off. So next step is to now do the back. Right, so the one thing about the rear that's kind of annoying is that there's a metal plate under the rear central end of the car. That plate covers up the differential, the drivetrain, drivetrain itself, the drive shaft. So that plate has to come off, unfortunately, so that we can get to the central jack point on the rear of the car. I thought maybe it would be possible to jack onto that metal plate, like right where the central jack point is located. Maybe it would make contact and press it, but I noticed just one time, just checking it out, it's got kind of a distance between the metal plate and where the jack point is located. So there's no keeping the metal plate in position to then lift it. There is a spot where there's 2 bolts for the differential, or like there's these 2 rear bars. Like I can just show you real quick. There are these, under here, there's these 2 rear bolts here. These 2 big bolts that go to these like rear, like little pieces of metal. They claim you can jack off those bolts to lift the car up, but I am not entirely sure, what, I guess that is steel. I guess it is metal, but tough to really tell if that can support the whole weight. But there's a giant metal plate. As you can see, if I zoom in, you probably won't be able to see it, but you can see it comes down under where near like the differential is, and that's the plate that you're supposed to jack off on. So to get to this plate, you need to get this cover off, and the only way you're going to get them off is you now need to lift maybe just one corner of the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift from this corner with my jack, get this car up in the air on one corner, so it's only on the floor on one side. You could also lift up from this corner, at the beginning of the process, and get this cover off right away. I have had to lift the rear up alone a few times to do the rear suspension. But there we go, making contact with the my jack here on the corner. What this will do is it's going to lift up. We're going to lift it up nice and high so that I can get underneath and start taking the bolts off that plate. Let's see what kind of room we're dealing with. It's probably worth putting something underneath here when you're getting down here. Like so, lifting up about that amount, it lets me snake in. So there's the plate right here. It goes pretty far forward. I haven't really counted all the bolts. Let's see, there's I think 1, 2, 3. There's probably like 8 or 10 bolts that are underneath here. So this whole plate needs to come down before you can get, and as you can see right there is that central jack point is underneath here. So you can see there's kind of a distance between the plate and where that jack point is located. So yeah, we
we'll need to try and get that back plate off. And as you can see, that jack is not even touching over there, which is fine. It's right now just kind of being attached by the front here and the corner here. We'll make sure that this tire stays down during the process. Okay, the bolts underneath are 8mm. I'm going to use this Milwaukee electronic ratchet that I have. This thing's great for reaching far in. It's 8mm bolts. So I'm going to start. I would highly suggest before doing this job to get maybe a wheel, like a spare tire or a wheel itself. Get that and put it underneath here as an extra measure of caution. Because, you know, right now I'm only supported by this rear jack right now. So the bolts that I have to get off are pretty far forward right now. Let's see if I can even try and get this to work. But luckily with how much this can reach, you can get lots of distance. There comes one bolt. You know, to get this back on is just a real pain. Getting it off is pretty easy. So there's another one. Here's here. This one in the hole. And then there's one right here. And one in the middle here. Now that you got all the ones in the way forward there out, we can bring these bolts up and move ourselves back more. There's only a few more left. There's one here. And then there's just the two in the back. Okay, just like that. This metal plate slide out. Bring all these bolts out. Let's see. How many there were? All right, let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 bolts. 9. And there might be an extra one down there somewhere, but we'll get to it once we get the car up. So now that you've done that, you can now lower the car on the corner, and we should have room to get the car underneath into the center part of the car. Get this back in here. Like I said, you need a lot of space in the rear as well, because when you go to lift the center part of this car in the back, you're going to need as much room for this handle to go down. So now, position down under here. All right, now that you've gotten the jack moved to the rear, there's the plate. This is the jacking part right here. Jacking point is right there. See the differentials right up here. It's right near to where that drain bolt is. So it's this. You can see as mine is kind of rusted. So you get your jack position right about right there in the middle where the flat part is located. I don't even know if I have this on camera. Yeah. Just have to readjust once this thing comes up to height. So now get a firm contact on the center part of that piece of metal, just like that. Now we can get back out from under the car, start to lift the car up. Now we'll have all the rear wheels off the ground. Okay. The wheels are off the ground. Said I got these blackjacks. Should probably buy the same. Should buy all four the same, but I've had these longer and felt like saving some money. Start positioning these underneath. I also noticed one of my corners is one's a little higher than the other when I go to put these down. So we'll see if I have to pull one up or not. I can't remember if I think it was the other side. So like I said, position it between on the jack pad here, you know, further forward, because it's gonna, when it comes down, the pad's gonna move that direction. So want to be able to get it right on in the middle. So like I said, like we did earlier with the front, gonna just start lowering, see which one comes down close to being first. Then we're gonna go back and check. So it looks like it's this side. Making sure we're in between. We're in the middle. Almost there. Okay, guys, in the middle there. I think this side is gonna be, this is the weird side where sometimes I might have to lift this up another notch to get it to really make full contact. I don't know if yeah, it's fine. You'll probably notice that going to do this job, I'm not sure if like one of these corners is really up to the height properly. All right, so with that underneath, just get under and check. Passenger side now making contact. The way I noticed is that when I was getting higher and higher, putting them all at the same length and height, you know, this one had no contact one time, but this one's making contact. So just like that, jack's down. Front wheels are off the ground. Now the rear wheels are off the ground. These are the bolts for that plate. So we'll swing back around just like that, everybody. That is, I got a narrow garage here. It's not fun doing this job. It's a little strenuous having to get on the ground and really get this jack underneath a million different areas. But you can see the back is off the ground, front is off the ground. But yeah, sometimes I'll just leave my car like this during the winter. I'll just leave them on the jack stands. I've even left them on the taller truck jack stands. And so if you ever wanted to buy these and go up higher and higher, you can do that by, now that you're in this position. So now that we've gotten the rears on the back, we would go about, now coming back to the front, I'd bring my green jack back to the front, start lifting it higher. I would then extend the length of those blue ones, the little thing here. You'll start lifting them up, maybe almost, you know, to second or last highest point on them. The car will look a little funky sitting on the four jack stands with the fronts a little higher. But then you'll be able to move out and go back to the rear, and with them being higher, then you'll bring the car more back up into line in level with the front. And then once you've done that, you could take those blackjacks that I have and swap them out and have these all the way at the bottom. And then once you put these in the back, then you would come back to the front, lift it up a little higher, take those shorter 2-ton blue ones out and put these into the front. And just like that, you'll have 6-ton jacks lifting this car up in the air, very, very high up in the air. Gives you a lot of space. So, and then if you want to bring it up higher and higher on these 6-ton jacks, all I would do is I wouldn't go a little too crazy with lifting the front and the rear drastically, because you're getting pretty high off the ground and
seeing that, you know, once the car tilts backwards or forwards on when they're high off the ground, it looks a little questionable. So you just go, you know, you would probably just jack it up, go like 2 or 3 extra lengths, and then go back to the rear, and then go that amount up and another 2 or 3 clicks up, and then come back to the front and do the exact same thing. And you could probably get this car, you know, lifted all the way up, front and back, front and back, front and back, until this thing's almost as high as possible with those off the ground. These things are definitely rated very well for this car. I think this car is only 2,900 pounds. And so the 2 tons work perfectly. But yeah, that's basically it. That's how you get this car up on the 4 jack stands. So you do have to get the car up on jack stands when you do an oil change. Unfortunately, you know, these ramps don't work when you do an oil change because their car sits way too low, and the front of the bumper just pushes the ramps out of the way. They do make really low profile ramps, but I bought ones that were considered low profile ramps, and they still didn't work for how low this car was. You'd have to buy like some extremely long, low profile ones for it to work. And then those are definitely a lot easier to do. But it's, you know, convenient once you get the car off the ground. You can do multiple things other than oil changes if you've got other things you got to work on. But yeah, this is definitely the easiest car to get off on 4 jack stands compared to all my other cars out there. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps you out.